What is Mount Athos and why it's important for our tradition? Mount Athos is probably the most unique place on the planet. It's a monastic republic. It's a peninsula in Greece. It's had a continuous monastic presence for well over 1,000 years. There are 20 kind of main monasteries, what we call ruling monasteries, but only to think of them as far as like, everyone answers to someone else, like who's in charge here. There's 20 monasteries that have underneath them or like on the land through this peninsula. It acts like an island, honestly. You can't really cross it on land. You take a boat to it. Thousands of monks, thousands of monasteries and little cells and skeets and hermitages, and again, like these 20 large monasteries. Some of them are as large as like a little medieval city. They're incredible. And what's going on there is daily worship of the Lord in the services, morning prayers and liturgies every day, and work. They're basically all farmers and painters making icons and translators writing books. And it's all men. It's only men, which is a strange thing for our times, but only men go to visit. It's an island, a peninsula dedicated to the Mother of God, and she has claimed it and being asked for it, I should say. She asked for it from her son as her garden, and he gave it to her. So we say the only woman on the island is the Mother of God. It's hers. And she's revered in Orthodoxy, but on Mount Athos. And they even say that she visits the monasteries, and people have experience with that. So it's a group of men from all over the world. There are Americans on Mount Athos, and I'm friends with one of them. I've met several of them, but I'm actually friends with one, and I've been a handful of times now, including just this fall again. And last year, I've taken both my sons there on different trips. And you go to pray. You go to hike around and pilgrimage. I'd served liturgy this fall on the peak of Mount Athos, which was an incredible experience. There's a monastery or a church, not a monastery, but a church at the very peak, on the peak at the very top, made of marble. I have no idea how they got it up there. And it was freezing cold and beautiful. We did liturgy at like 3:30 in the morning so that we could watch the sunrise. I could see my breath. I wore a beanie right until liturgy started and took it off. It was just frozen. I kept holding candles like this, keep my hands from freezing. It has a treasury of faith and relics of saints. Many of the most valuable things in Christianity are kept there. It's the place you would send a piece of the cross. It's the place you would send, the remains, the relics of saints throughout the ages. And there's not a place quite like it, and it's so full of wisdom. And maybe I should say why it's so important to Orthodoxy, or one of the reasons is in Orthodoxy, there's not a big chasm between parish life and monastic life. It's not like there's a disconnect. It's like just the life of the church. And so the parishes rely on the monasteries for their prayer for sure, but also just for the life that's going on there. Counsel, men go to Mount Athos and seek counsel, and just to breathe that air and be in a place that's only dedicated to prayer. There's no, I was going to say there's no commercial enterprise. There's like a couple of shops and a restaurant, not like two little restaurants. And everything else is just monasteries. And the shops only sell stuff men need to go to monasteries, and the food is only for men. It's all vegetarian. There's no meat on Mount Athos. So it's like you go there, they serve huge portions, and if you get a beer, it's a huge beer. It's a place for men by men. That is not the most important part. I'm sure there's people upset about it, but it's an incredible place. And World Heritage Center and all of that, incredible. So the wisdom, the life, it's a treasure that comes from there. And to have that blessing to go is an incredible thing. To see, to walk where all the saints have walked through all these ages, these men who have gone there to love the Lord and pray and serve each other and serve the pilgrims that come. And there's so much we hold on to from the monks we've asked for counsel over the years. So there's probably a lot more, history and just from the heart. I would just it's like the spiritual, it's certainly the monastic home for the Orthodox Church. It's kind of a spiritual home in a way for the Orthodox Church. It's not the only thing. And there's plenty of monastic, importance given in Russia, other places, of course, and throughout America, even now in Greece and all kinds of places, Bulgaria and Georgia and Serbia. And we can go through all the Orthodox lands but uninterrupted worship of the Lord in those monasteries for, I don't know, it's probably 1,200, 1,300 years or more, maybe. Something like that. It's incredible. Yeah. Yeah, is the Orthodox Church unique in monasticism? I think today people are really suspect of monks. And if you're a Christian, a certain background, you might say that they don't do any good. Kind of it's all basically everything has to be very practical, or if it can't be judged by its outward evidence or something, then it falls short. But yeah, I don't know if the Roman Catholic Church has monks and monasteries. Orthodoxy, there's not orders the same way the Catholics do, where they have a Benedictine order and all of that. St. Benedict's great, of course, but we don't have orders in that way. There's just kind of, the flavor is kind of the culture. The Greeks are one way, the Russians are another way, and there's the typikon, how services are done are a little different. But being a monk in the Orthodox Church is being a monk in the Orthodox Church. They don't have we don't have teaching monks. We just have monks. Some monk might teach, but we don't have an order of teaching monks or an order who open a bunch of high schools or something. We just don't have that. It's men and women who go and give their lives to Christ in that family. Everyone needs to be in a family. So you're in a family with a spouse and children. You're a family with monks. And some people today, the family is the parish for them, if they aren't married, and we're not against single people, of course, or anything, but there's this life in the parish. There's this life in the monastery, and the women have a sisterhood. We write the abbess, and it's the abbess and her sisterhood. The men have a brotherhood, and if it's healthy and where it's on what it's supposed to be, they're brothers. They're actually like brothers, the way brothers are with each other. Disagree, love each other, protect each other, look out for each other. And we don't really have that many hermits, although we have them. We have brotherhoods and sisterhoods, where they go to live together and pray together and die together. So I think it's important for lay people and in America, throughout the world, but in America, to have the opportunity to visit a monastery and to go. You check with the monastery before you go. You don't just randomly show up. You send a little email, if they have email. My favorite little monastery doesn't do any of that, but you call or whatever, and you just say, I'd like to come for a visit. You can go for the day. Sometimes they have overnight facilities, not always, but you go and you go respectful. You're going to someone else's home, so they want you to dress a certain way. That's what you do. You do what they say, and you can go to the services, both inquirers, catechumens, and Orthodox. Can go to the services and join them for meals. It depends on the monastery. Some monasteries are small and they can't handle visitors. Others are very large and they're kind of see hospitality. All monasteries see hospitality as their ministry, but some are really that's what they focus on. And the larger monasteries here in Arizona and even smaller ones in New Mexico and throughout our country and other places in Mount Athos, they see it as their ministry is hospitality. So they would give away all their food to visitors before they hoarded it or kept it back for the monks. So to go for a meal, it's important to keep in mind that you're entering a place where there's a rhythm. This is how they do their life. So it's if someone came to our house and didn't want to do life in our house the way we do life, we're pretty quiet now. We don't have kids at home anymore. So someone came in and they want the radio cranked up. We had a visitor who like our kids used to do, like, put a stereo or something in the bathroom and crank it up and take a shower. We'd be like, it doesn't really fit with our house anymore. Like, so if you go to the monastery, you're visiting someone's house, you go and I think what you'll find there is so much freedom from what people carry around in the world that it is pretty attractive. And I think it can have a really good influence on us in the world. All of us who are not monks, to be exposed to like how someone doesn't have a checking account. They might have a driver's license or they might not, They might not have a driver's license, they might not have a checking account, and they don't work for money. Like, to go to visit a monastery is an incredible thing. Like, we work for money. That's what we do. And you go there and it's like they just work because the work needs to be done and it's good for us. So like, yeah, somebody's got to feed these chickens or paint that wall or move those rocks or serve this liturgy or whatever, serve these people of, cook this food and write these books and sell these books or whatever they do at monasteries, and it's like at the end of the day, like they're not hoping for overtime. They're just working, and then they're praying. And it's just one life, of course, but I think it's good medicine especially for Americans. It's really good medicine to go to a place where there's not a whole lot they don't lie to each other. They're not like, yeah, it looks great. In a monastery, they're like, truthfully, doesn't look that good, or whatever. They would just tell you the truth and they would try to give it to you in love. I can tell you a story and I won't tell you who it is, but there's an abbot in a monastery. And I asked him one time, I said, how's it going? And he looked at me and he goes, I hate that question. I'm like, I don't even know how to respond. Like, how it's going? Like, what's happening? Like, that's all we ask each other. How you doing? So I'm like, how you doing? And he goes, I hate that question. I'm like, what? He goes, do you really want to know how I'm actually doing? Do you really want the truth? So we know each other very well. We're standing outside and it's just the two of us, but his monks are around. Visitors are around. So he goes, you really want to know how I'm doing? He starts confessing his sins. Just standing there in the dirt, little dirt driveway next to some buildings. He's like, you want to know how I really am? And I won't repeat to you what he said. But it wasn't a formal confession. It was just like, you want to know how I really am? Here's how I really am. I'm a sinner. And he starts to list. So my parish knows this already. So it was such a funny experience. I start confessing my sins to him. I'm like, oh yeah? You want to know what I'm about, And we're just standing there. It was like the most amazing thing. Well, that just doesn't happen in the world, like the monastery is a great place to visit. You see, you don't, it's not like that's the life, but you see another full portrayal of the Christian life lived with singular focus that we can't really have in the world. Doesn't mean they're better. It doesn't mean, by the way, that it's harder, the monastic life. It's just different. It's a different life. And we don't even try to like copy their life. We have to live our life. But as far as these things, like telling the truth, saying the truth in love, speaking the truth in love, really caring for people, like being willing to like give away all the food instead of hoarding it, like whatever they do. And working like the purity that's there of working because work is good and not because it's a burden we're trying to figure out how to get out of as fast as we can, So there's probably lots to say about that life.